Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia Madani. First and foremost, I think it is very clear that Dr. Faiz did not use AI to write that speech, which is wonderful. In this day and age, we often think that AI is a shortcut. AI is what we use to prepare a lot of things. But we are now beginning to confront several major problems with regards to the use or misuse of the cutting edge technologies that we see today. As a minister who not only handles things like communications, internet, but also media, the biggest fear in my engagements with friends in the media is the impact of technologies like AI on their livelihood. This is particularly disconcerting when you see that in the past few years, the economic impact of newer technologies, including social media, has had a very debilitating effect on the continuity, sustainability of what we understand to be legacy media. A lot of reporters are losing their jobs. A lot of companies that we once thought were untouchable, giants in the media industry, are now facing very pressing times. Bottom lines are affected. The future seems very uncertain. What is the role of government, ministries, society, particularly when the impact of technology, such as AI, but also social media, on what we understand to be a pillar of democracy, the fourth estate, the media? Now we see, oftentimes, in order to be the fastest, the first to break the news, we see the question of whether the source is correct. Sometimes we read about news articles that may have been pilfered or constructed using AI. At times, my ministry and I myself have had to confront with the questions raised when content, particularly either online or in print, has been produced using AI. For example, if you all remember, last year there was this incident involving the Malaysian flag that was produced using AI. So, inevitably, the question of responsible use of technology comes to the fore. Responsible not only for the users, but also for the makers. Today, it is very clear the advent of AI can also pose latent threats or systemic risk. We've seen now in these past few weeks the issues around X and their AI Grok, and how various jurisdictions, understanding the risk that such technology poses, particularly to vulnerable groups, when sovereign nations speak out through their regulators on how technology and technologists and technology companies need to be more responsible, we can see that the kind of conversations that it provokes through diplomatic channels also leaves much to be desired. I am particularly concerned at the kind of language that has come out, threatening, for example, the UK. Mr. High Commissioner, this is particularly disconcerting. Which is why in London Tech Week in 2023, I was present when, at that time, AI was still nascent, was still about to be launched, about to be announced to the world. ChatGPT had just appeared. And the former Prime Minister of the UK, Rishi Sunak, was talking about how the UK, in order to promote investment on AI particularly, was prepared to be a little bit more light touch in terms of the regulatory framework. Now, 3 years down the line, sometimes we have to consider the balance between the openness of investment, the presence of regulatory frameworks. And this is the moral quandary confronting us today. Which is why when Datuk Faiz came to see me, I think it was last year, to discuss things around technology, the impact, some of the philosophical considerations which many policymakers and ministers don't have time to consider, except when we're stuck in traffic jams like I was this morning. I'm sure many of you were. That's when your mind wanders and you start thinking about, should such and such technology really be... Anyway. But it is very important that such work take place. And so I applaud ISIS Malaysia and MCMC for taking a very bold step in working together to make sure that a more cogent, cohesive, comprehensive, and independent assessment of where things are, the state of play, where we need to go, where we need to be, where we are now, here today. These are very important questions. And I also recognize that technology is not the be-all and end-all. It does not exist for its own end. Or does it? For some, perhaps, at the end of the day, it's about producing enough of a technology to sell, and then for some, it might be an intellectual pursuit. For some, it is a future, a very uncertain one. So I hope that the work that CERT does, definitely the Malaysian Cabinet will be very interested in. I, for one, am especially keen to bring this to the attention of my Cabinet colleagues. But I also implore ISIS Malaysia to work in tandem with your regional counterparts. What Malaysia has done, shepherding what we call the Kuala Lumpur Declaration on safer, more responsible social media use during the 47th ASEAN Summit, I hope serves to set the tone. In confronting big tech, many of them feel that they're bigger than nations. Yet that cannot be the case. ASEAN is 660 million souls. But because, unlike the European Union, we do not possess a singular central parliament, what the ministers responsible for information did last year in Bandar Seri Begawan, which was adopted at the 47th ASEAN Summit, was to come to an agreement that we will look to each other, not only for support, but for understanding, and to set our own pace vis-a-vis what each other is doing, in order for us to together respond to, engage with, and I hope not to confront big tech. Recently, I'm sure many of you would have read, there was a news article published by Reuters about how certain big tech companies have been profiting with hundreds of billions of dollars worth of global turnover, and yet a certain percentage of that is derived from scam advertisements that has been put on their platforms. And this presents a systemic risk for all countries in the world. And when countries can be divided and ruled by the whims and fancies of these tech companies, we must ask the real question that confronts us today. Does technology serve as a tool for neo-colonialists, or should it serve a higher purpose to help humanity advance? Quite a heavy point of discussion for a Thursday morning. But I felt this is the right place for me to say this. For Malaysia, we have taken certain measures some in tandem, some with respect for what my counterparts are doing. We acknowledge different jurisdictions, perhaps have different considerations and certain lived realities with regards to presence or investments in their own countries. But we believe that when we speak together, ASEAN and ASEAN nations cannot be shunted aside. And so, yesterday, 2 days ago, I mentioned that with regards to GROC, for example, MCMC will be calling them in. Has a date been set, Datuk Sulaiman? Dah ada dah? 21st, so they're coming. Or they haven't. Okay, tak apa, nanti kita boleh follow up. But this is important. We want engagement. We won't take a very stiff, purely regulatory approach. We understand the value. You know, a long time ago, in a previous life, when I was an arts practitioner, not even a member of parliament, at that time, I was part of the opposition. Of course, I never imagined that I would serve in government as a minister. But technology helped at that time. I was an early user of Twitter. And I remember downtown Kuala Lumpur, just near here, served as the center, the epicenter of a lot of what we understand. During Reformasi, there was no Twitter. But later in 2007, 2008, when Bersih 1 happened and a number of these social uprisings took place, technology did serve somewhat of a role to make sure that the voice of the people was heard and that we had an outlet, as it were. Today, I've taken a position not only to respect democracy and the democratic rights, the constitutional guarantees for freedom of expression, but as a minister today, it is also on me, given that I've taken an oath to protect the federal constitution, it's also to make sure that the environment, the ecosystem, including technologies like social media, are used safely. Which is why on the 1st of January, we have enforced the Online Safety Act. And on the 1st of January, we have enforced a deeming provision whereby all social media platforms that have 8 million users in Malaysia will be deemed to be licensed and therefore falls under Malaysian law. Primarily, it's to deal with the problems around criminal activity, online harms that takes place on their platforms. I can say that in the past 2 weeks, from the 1st of January until yesterday, the amount of content that has been requested to be taken down for largely being online gambling, which is not allowed in Malaysia, or scams, amounting to about 76% of all takedown requests, is somewhere to the tune of 27,000 pieces of content in the first 2 weeks. I won't mention which platforms are enabling most of these online harms. They know who they are. Oh, no. Then not you. Some of them are here. Yeah. But we hope to be able to work together. We want social media to be used by Malaysians. Many of them use it, not only to connect with friends, to express themselves, but to earn a living. And this serves a very positive function for the development of society. We want to make sure that the internet, which for me personally, I've spent a great deal of my time in the last 3 years to make sure 5G is put up properly, that we ensure no village is left behind, remains unconnected. We have enabled certain technologies to be used that enables them to be able to access the internet very quickly. And we've ensured data in Malaysia is among the cheapest in the world. We're in the top 10. I think it's about 4 cents per gigabyte. But more than that, more than working very hard to make sure that we have faster internet, cheaper internet, more widely accessible internet, it's about having safer internet, especially for children and our families. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I truly welcome and laud the launch of CERT. I hope to have more engagements with ISIS, and I hope that the outcome of and the output from CERT will help to serve not only Malaysians, so the Malaysian government, but people around the world. May this be a beacon and shine a light not only on the momentum that we see today, but the destiny that we all dream of and aspire to. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to announce the launch of CERT. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.